Welcome back to Factual America, the channel where we dig deep, sort fact from fiction, and ask the tough questions others are afraid to. Today, we're tackling a topic that's been shrouded in mystery, controversy, and political theater: the January 6th tapes. Whether you've heard snippets in the news or seen dramatic footage online, you've probably wondered, what are they not telling us about the events of January 6th, 2021? Stick around, because what you're about to hear may surprise you, and it's information you won't get from the mainstream media. Let's start with what you probably already know. On January 6, 2021, a group of protesters entered the U.S. Capitol building. In the aftermath, mainstream networks ran an endless loop of select dramatic clips: broken glass, angry chants, frenzied crowds. The story was set: insurrection, attack on democracy, words that pounded into the national conversation. Yet, what you actually saw, what we actually saw, was only a tiny fraction of the hours upon hours of footage that exist. Here's the first thing they rarely mention. Over 40,000 hours of surveillance and police body cam footage were captured that day. For more than 2 years, most of these tapes were locked away from the public, fueling rumors and suspicions on all sides. The question you should be asking is, why? If the narrative was so clear-cut, why shield the public from the evidence? The official explanation has always been security concerns. But is that the whole story? Leaked emails and whistleblower accounts have revealed debates behind the scenes, not about national security, but about optics. Who controlled what the American people got to see? Who chose which clips made your evening news bulletin and which never left a secure server in Washington? When House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, under mounting pressure, released thousands of hours of footage to select journalists, the narrative began to crack. Suddenly, scenes emerged of Capitol Police calmly escorting protesters through hallways, individuals walking between velvet ropes, and protesters photographing historical statues. To be clear, this isn't to excuse the violence that did occur, but it raises a crucial question. Did the mainstream narrative really reflect the full reality? Let's dive in deeper. Take the famous QAnon shaman video. Almost everyone remembers the outrageous images of Jacob Chansley in his horned fur hat. What most people don't know is that extended footage shows him being calmly escorted by Capitol Police officers, even stopping to thank them for their service. Why weren't these clips circulating alongside the images of chaos? Now, the second twist. Multiple members of Congress have openly admitted they were pressured by federal agencies not to release key footage. Some staffers reported legal threats, veiled warnings of jeopardizing ongoing investigations, and even concerns for their personal salas. Now we send a prioridade on Mari. Where the Sonic and Sar Shimzalip. No plain on Massant for extremaceremonic is the Barsharel at democracy. When footage is hidden, it raises legitimate suspicions. Let's not forget the role of big tech. Social media giants flagged and removed posts that attempted to share unedited J6 clips, labeling them as misinformation without explanations. How can a raw surveillance video, shown without commentary, be classified as misinformation? The only possible reason is that the establishment wants to maintain control over our perceptions. Of course, the government insists that all actions were in the spirit of public safety. But what about the truth? The American public deserves to see the unvarnished reality, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and make up their own minds. Instead, we got spoon-fed a prefabricated narrative. Here's a third twist. Some experts argue the most damaging evidence isn't what was revealed, but what's still being hidden. There are confirmed reports of plainclothes federal agents mingling within the crowd, some reportedly inciting aggressive behavior. If true, this raises disturbing questions about entrapment and provocation. Why isn't this making headline news? Who's accountable for these covert operations? The next bombshell, key timeframes, including the critical minutes before and after the breach, contain numerous unexplained video gaps, technical malfunction, or selective editing. Independent investigators who requested these missing segments often hit a bureaucratic wall, getting vague responses like "files corrupted" or "under review." Yet the tech exists to recover even heavily damaged surveillance files. One clip finally released months later showed suspicious individuals opening doors from the inside, and not all wore MAGA hats. Pause for a moment. If the Capitol was locked down, how did these entries happen? Could insiders have been complicit? The media called such questions conspiracy theories. But isn't journalism supposed to ask uncomfortable questions? We also need to talk about the Capitol Police leadership. After J6, several top officials resigned under a cloud of controversy. Internal memos later emerged indicating that higher-ups had advance warning about potential unrest, but critical intelligence was withheld from frontline officers. Why weren't reinforcements called in? Who decided to stand down at crucial moments? And then comes the story of the protesters themselves. The majority of those present did not engage in violence or vandalism. They were peacefully exercising their First Amendment rights. Emotional stories of grandmothers waving flags, veterans praying in hallways, and parents filming tributes to lost loved ones remain buried under a deluge of sensationalist headlines. On the legal front, the vast majority of January 6 defendants were charged with non-violent offenses. Trespassing, parading without a permit, crimes that for years were handled as simple citations or minor misdemeanors in protests at the Capitol. But the prosecution changed tactics after J6, throwing the book at hundreds of people with harsh sentences and pretrial detentions. Yet, many of those charged waited months, even years, for trial. Sometimes in solitary confinement, sometimes denied bail. All while the tapes that could provide context to their actions were sitting locked in government vaults. This isn't justice, it's punishment before conviction. The founders warned us about this very abuse of state power. There's also the issue of context. In the weeks leading up to January 6th, public officials heightened rhetoric, and authorities ignored calls for enhanced security. On the day itself, barriers were minimal, and in some cases, they appeared almost inviting. What was the plan? Months later, internal documents surfaced showing confusion among agencies, with nobody officially in charge. Think back to other major protests in Washington, D.C. From the Vietnam era to BLM protests, the rules and public access fluctuated depending on the politics of the day. But never before had there been such a coordinated effort to shape and restrict the narrative the way we saw after J6. Selective editing, background briefings for favored reporters, and aggressive policing of dissenting voices online created a perfect storm for misinformation. Some have pointed out that the most extraordinary aspect of the released tapes isn't the violence, tragic as it was, but the overwhelming number of people lost, confused, or simply observing history without comprehension. There were moments of genuine chaos. There was also confusion, fear, and humanity. People helping others up, cleaning debris, or even trying to calm one another. Let's not sugarcoat the violence. Police injuries, broken windows, those responsible must be held accountable. But we do ourselves no favors by pretending this was the full story. When government and media join forces to suppress footage, they undermine our trust in both our institutions and each other. So, what's the real story of January 6th? It's a complicated picture, but one thing is certain. The existence and concealment of the full tapes changed the game. At Factual America, we believe sunlight is the best disinfectant, that every American, regardless of political affiliation, has the right to see everything, not just the highlights and lowlights chosen by distant elites. Let's ask the tough question. If what happened was so unambiguous, why the need for secrecy, censorship, and relentless narrative control? Are we so fragile as a nation that we cannot handle the truth, however complicated it might be? Or is it that some truths are inconvenient for those in power? Truths that reveal mistakes, failures, or even deliberate manipulations at the highest levels? The future of our republic depends on an informed citizenry, on people willing to look past the headlines, question what they're told, and demand accountability from those in power. The January 6th tapes are not just video files. They are evidence of a pivotal day in American history. We owe it to ourselves and to future generations to uncover the whole truth, no matter where it leads. So, as we close, I urge you, don't settle for half-truths. Watch the footage for yourself. Seek out independent sources, demand transparency, and never let fear or intimidation stop you from asking questions. If they can try to bury this, what else might they hide tomorrow? That's all for today, here on Factual America. We want to hear from you. Do you think the full January 6th tapes should be released to the public? What questions do you still have? And what other topics should we dig into next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's keep the conversation alive. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and stay tuned for more deep dives you won't find anywhere else. Until next time, keep questioning. Keep seeking the truth. And remember, the real story often lies just beneath the surface.